Women in Focus, a podcast by British Naturism. Hi, and welcome to episode 8 of Women in Focus, brought to you by British Naturism. Please remember to like and subscribe on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts. I'm your host, Helen Berryman, and today we're staying in the UK. I'm going to be talking to Sam Hawcroft, who is the owner of H&E Naturist magazine, and today she's coming to talk to me about it and all things naturist. So, I'd like you to welcome Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, yeah, thanks for talking to me, appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. So you're a lady in naturism and you are the boss lady at H&E Naturist magazine.
Yes, yeah.
Obviously, it's not your creation because that would make you 100 and something years old, and you're clearly not. So how did that come about?
Yeah, it was a while ago now. It's been about 12 years, I think. It's longer in terms of my involvement with it. It goes back to sort of mid-2000s, really, because I think the previous editor was a lady called Sarah Backhouse, and she was from Goole in East Yorkshire, and she was a colleague of mine, and we used to work at the Press Association, which is in Howden, which is in East Yorkshire, not far from there. And initially, she'd asked me to do a bit of proofreading on the magazine. So that was my first involvement back in about mid-2000s-ish, somewhere around there. I've not heard of the magazine before that, really. I wasn't all that familiar with it. So I grew to understand and know about it just from reading it regularly, really. In terms of the lifestyle, I was kind of amenable to it, but I wouldn't say I wasn't a card-carrying naturist or anything. It was all quite new to me, it was something that I'd sort of been aware of and possibly, done the thing on holiday where you get topless and that kind of thing. But in terms of being a naturist, that wasn't sort of on my radar back then. So I got to know the magazine, got to, understand it, like I say, from proofreading it. And then a couple or so years later, Sarah left H&E to become a teacher, I think. And they said, well, we're looking for somebody to edit the magazine. I'm not kidding myself that they had a complete raft of candidates. They were looking for somebody that was a reasonably skilled journalist and somebody local, and I fitted that bill. And I was working for the Press Association at the time. I guess I probably wasn't as happy with things at that point. So I thought, well, do you know what? Let's go for it. So I left there and started editing the magazine about 2008. And then it was a few years, I kind of did that for a few years. And then about 4 years later, 2012, I could sort of see it coming. I guess it was one of these where it was a small company. It was a sort of subsidiary or sister company to the Goole Times, which is a weekly local paper. A bit of an odd kind of fit, really, for that company to own a naturist magazine as well. But that's how it was. But I think it was, like a lot of things nowadays, it couldn't really sustain it in that setup, with a sort of accounts department and an office and all those big overheads. It wasn't really kind of working for them. So they said, do you want to take it on? And again, it was kind of, well, why not? Let's give this a go. What can I lose, really? If it fails, then I'm sure I'll be able to get a job in journalism again. It was just one of those things. I just thought, let's just give it a crack. And here I am, 12 years later. So it's still going, yeah.
So do you own the magazine then?
Yes, yeah. It was back in the day, in 2012, where I didn't really sort of pay a lot for it. It was just, do you want to take it on? And I did that, paid a bit of money for the stock and things like that. Yeah, I've owned it since then, and edited it for, about another decade. And then it's a couple of years ago that I've sort of stepped back from the editing and Paul Rouse has taken over, because I think it needed fresh eyes. I think, I couldn't have continued to edit it for that long. I think it would have been almost a bit self-indulgent, really, to rule the roost over it. It needed somebody fresh to look at it. And I think Paul's taken it in a different direction. And I think one that it needed to go in as well, a bit more inclusive, but focusing more on the body positivity side of things, on ordinary naturists and less on, I guess, the sort of the photography and model element of it, really. That was something that has been a history of H&E for absolutely donkey's years, is the pretty girls. And, H&E has had several periods of history, some of which have not been all that great. And it's got that reputation. And I think people who haven't seen H&E for many years can be dismissive of it and say, oh, yeah, it's just full of pretty girls and bordering on porn. And yeah, there were some years sort of during the, I would say, 70s, 80s, 90s, particularly, where you look at it and you think, I don't know what they were playing at. They must have.
Yeah, how was that allowed?
Yeah, exactly. And they must have alienated genuine naturists, by turning it into basically soft porn. But sort of, 90s, a guy called Mark Nesbitt was one of the first ones to kind of really bring it back and start focusing on the naturist lifestyle and naturist clubs and venues and things that really matter to naturists in this country and abroad. And then Sarah continued that, and I came in after that.
So H&E magazine stands for Health and Efficiency. Can you give us a little bit of history? I know it's over 100 years old now. So how do you know its origins, how it came to be?
Yeah, I did a bit of research on that. I went down to the British Library at least, I think I went 3 times in the end to have a look at what they've got, because I've got a few archive editions. I've been sort of buying them up off eBay now and again when
They're expensive now, aren't they?
They are quite expensive depending on what you want, and sometimes they're overpriced as well. I think people are trying to get too much money for them. But I went back, and what I wanted to do was kind of prove the claim, because on many editions of H&E it said for some time established 1900, and I kind of wanted to know where they got that claim from. And from what I could find I found it was basically 1902, because there was a magazine that was started in 1902 called Vim, which is lovely, which is sort of sounds like some sort of lemon kitchen cleaner, but and then that became Health and Vim in around, I think sort of again the early sort of 1910s-ish, around that kind of time. And then that became Health and Efficiency in, I believe, 1918. And I actually looked at all the old editions at British Library to sort of follow the lineage of when it went, Health and Efficiency from 1918. And around that time, naturism wasn't a thing, really. It was more kind of, health and fitness, really. If you think about Charles Atlas and that kind of thing, your strong men, and I think it would have been aimed at men as well in particular. And I guess the theory was that the body works healthy and efficiently. That's where the health and efficiency comes from, so, and then they started to adopt the naturism thing in the 30s, really. It wasn't until the sort of mid-30s that naturism as a word starts appearing in H&E. Before that, like I say, it's all sort of health and fitness stuff, and some of it, it borders on quackery as well. There's some crazy adverts in there that, like how to be taller and how to regrow your hair and all of that stuff. And you actually think that that's like a modern thing. It's not. It's been going on for 100 years and more. So yeah, I've kind of followed it, and I believe it's 1902, which is what we sort of settled on. If you can follow its family tree, if you like. But naturism really didn't come until about the 30s, and I think it was following on from the German, the Americans sort of thing. So it starts to come in around them.
It's amazing, actually, that any magazine can last over 100 years. And for something sort of so niche, I guess H&E's had to evolve with the times as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's had such rich and long history, and as I say, some of those periods are a bit kind of dubious. But yeah, there's all sorts. I mean, I guess the heyday would have been 40s, 50s, 60s, and the kind of immediate post-war era was when the club started cropping up in huge numbers. I would say in the 50s, there were just dozens of Sun clubs, like up and down the country. The lifestyle was absolutely thriving. And then, into the 60s. And I guess what's happened is that, I don't know, that over time has become a bit more outdated. And now, as we see, naturist clubs in this country tend to be populated by those people still, or maybe the sons and daughters of those people. But the generations below have not really come in, because I guess it's just not their thing. And I've always made this point that I don't think it's naturism, really. It's not the nudity element that is stopping them. It's just clubs in general. I think you could be the member of a cricket club or a bowls club or anything. It's just not a younger generation thing. The naturism is a red herring in this sort of situation. I don't think it's that at all.
Yeah, so the nudity is kind of incidental, really. It's sort of the club mentality, and
the club mentality, I think,
it's not attractive to the, I don't know, under 30s maybe.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, you've got the exceptions to that rule that are, I don't know, that they've seemed to have embraced just the modern world, really. So they do promotions and they do advertising and all that kind of stuff. They actually, they come on board with magazines like H&E and just work with them. Whereas, there are some other ones where you approach them and say, do you want to promote yourself to the wider world? And they have a fit of the vapors almost. that you've even suggested any sort of advertising or promotion or such.
New people coming to our club? Hell no.
Exactly, yeah. And so, I mean, some of them, the smaller ones, are a bit cliquey and they've got their own little society and they're happy with that. So, yeah, we've sort of followed that, really. We still do obviously talk about the clubs a lot. But I guess H&E's, it always has been quite international looking, really. I think we do focus on, the USA, and obviously Spain and all the countries where it really is quite popular. One area I'm interested in is Holland, the Netherlands. It's huge over there, so I think I'd like to do a bit more with them and explore that area a bit more. But there's loads, we can always do. But and the British attitude to naturism is, one thing worth talking. It really isn't like that, is it? In Germany and Spain and all those other places.
I was going to ask, why do you think it's taken the UK so long to get on board?
Man, I try not to be negative about these things, but
yeah,
we really have that mentality. I mean, you only have to look at the sort of comments on. I mean, you've experienced this because
oh yes,
you've been so out there in terms of the media, and I think I've said this before, is that I hugely take my hat off to you to do that, because I'm a bit more of a private person, I guess. I'm out there on Twitter and stuff, but in terms of getting my kit off on social media and in national newspapers, I couldn't deal with the comments. I just couldn't deal with that kind of attention. And yeah, you only have to look at those comments to just think, oh my God, because it's a mixture of abuse and mockery in it, really.
Yeah, but I've learnt very early on, like the first time I went public, I think I read some of the comments and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then I thought, do you know what? Don't read them.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care what some idiot on a keyboard thinks about me. And I suppose for me, the reason why I do what I do is to demystify it a little bit.
Yeah.
And just because still it's fairly new to me, 3 years, I think I can still relate. I can still remember what it was like before, and how terrifying it was, or how weird I thought it was. And, if I can feel like that, then so many other people are going to feel like that as well. And, we can talk about it as much as we like, but until you get someone in that situation, a social nude environment, they're not going to understand.
No
matter how much we bang on about it. But
yeah, definitely. I think if you are willing to sort of put your head above the parapet like that, I think that's great. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's helped me, with sort of body issues and body positivity and mental well-being, and for many, many others, men and women as well. So it can only be a good thing. And I quite like no tan lines as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Vitamin D is very good for you.
I always say to people, if you haven't tried swimming naked, that's one of the things I think that would convert you. Because once you've done that, why on earth you want to be in a swimming costume? I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, you just wouldn't again. And the other thing that surprised me about myself is I'm of a certain age now, menopausal. If you don't already sleep naked,
oh God, do
it.
No, I can't understand that. I mean, I sometimes see adverts for like how to keep cool in bed, wear these pajamas, and I'm thinking, what? Why would you do that? I mean, no, God, I've always slept naked, or I can't imagine why you would wear clothes in bed. Doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Yeah, I just wish the weather in this country was better, because it just, if people do see this video or stills from it or whatever, I'm sat here in a cardigan because it's June and it's not warm. It really isn't.
So for clarity, I'm in the southeast. I'm in London. Where are you, Sam?
Northeast. So just east of Hull. So I'm between Hull and the East Coast, and that's it. Always makes me laugh, that, because some people say, which naturist beaches do you use locally? And I always sort of say, well, if I was going to go naked on a northeast beach, I probably wouldn't go without a parka coat or something. You know what I mean? Widensea is, I work in Widensea a lot because I edit and own a local paper. That's my other hat that I wear. And yeah, most of the time it's blowing an absolute gale off that northeast coast. It really is not. It's never not windy on the coast down there, and we've got this thing called sea fret as well. I'm about sort of 10 miles inland, but if I drive to the coast, it can be a completely different climate. It's weird. I did that literally the other day. It was blazing sun in my back garden, and it was fantastic. And I had to go to Windsor for something on the evening, and about 3 miles towards the coast, it was just suddenly grey, cold, foggy. I was like, how is this possible? But yeah, so that is the northeast coast for you. Yeah.
Not conducive to naturism then. Not often.
Not really. I mean, there's some hardier people, and I always think blokes are the hardier ones. When you go to some events and it's like not warm, there'll be about 3 guys naked. I just think, how on earth are you doing that? I think they're just made of different stuff. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, actually, because when we go to, I don't know, like a party or a disco at a club, we start off dressed.
Yeah.
And then by the time you've like had a few drinks and dancing and that, we're all outside at midnight without any clothes on.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. But I guess we acclimatise.
Yeah, you do. I think you do in the end. But yeah, and a few drinks always helps, actually.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm going to start to get a rep here. So back to the magazine then. Over the years that you know of, like through archives and stuff like that, has there been any changes to what you can put on the front cover? Have you had censorship issues? Have they changed at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the legality I'm not entirely sure about, but yes, certainly censorship. I mean, back in the day, the what I call the below stairs has always been up until about the 70s. That was always censored. So men and women's bottom halves would always be censored. But you could have the top half nude on the front, and that was the case certainly throughout the 30s, 40s, possibly 50s and 60s. And I think they got away with that by calling it a health title. I believe that was kind of why, it's a health title, so it was allowed. As I say, I'm not sure in terms of the law, but there was an editor in the 60s, and it was called Leslie Bainbridge, and he wanted to push the envelope. And I think he just basically said, I've had enough of this censorship. And he just started publishing completely fully nudes in about the 60s and said, right, well, do me then. And I don't believe they did, because I think he was the one that sort of just said this is ridiculous. And the weird thing to modernise as well, I mean, I've got loads of these archive mags, is that in that period as well, they were printing pictures of children. And the weird thing was that the children were completely uncensored, but the adults were airbrushed.
Wow.
That's a sign of how times have changed.
Mm.
And then, Bainbridge was a bit guilty, I think, of sexualising the magazine, though. Earlier Leslie Bainbridge ones in the sort of early 60s, I think, were really nice and wholesome. But then as you get into the 70s, it's soft porn by that point.
Mm.
And so, yeah, in terms of censorship, things have changed. On the cover, again, I think it's not a law, but I think it's just a convention that if we're selling on the high street, we cannot have nudity on the front cover, so we have to have implied nudity if it's on any high street shelf, because we just wouldn't be able to sell it. I think that the shops would just say we can't do that. So that's how it's changed. So again, long history, lots of sort of issues there.
Yeah. And it is available to buy in some high street shops in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Again, the print run is not massive because it's a niche thing and it's print, and print magazines are not as huge as they were. Back in the day, H&E was selling thousands, I mean, tens of thousands. But it is in WH Smith's. I think there's about maybe 250 stores. And I think we just put it back in the travel ones because we experiment with that now and again. But it should be in kind of train stations and airports. I always say, if you can't find it, it's either because it's sold out of that particular store. Sometimes the store owners put it where they like, because again, there's no legislation as to where it gets put on the shelf. As a naturist magazine is a bit of an outlier, and sometimes they don't know where to put it. They might put it with a health section. They might look at the content and stick it high up somewhere. But again, it's up to the shop owner, and I can't go into every shop in the country and make sure where they display it. So yeah, online as well, it's on our website, and you can buy single copies and stuff. If you do struggle to get it, we'll send it post free in the UK and all that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll put links and everything in the show notes, so if people want to subscribe and buy single editions or all of them, because it's a fabulous magazine. So a couple of years ago, you very kindly did the Women in Focus written series.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference between the word naturist versus nudist? Is it interchangeable? Does it depend where you're from in the world? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think there is. I do find that Americans tend to say nudist a bit more. I do find that is more of Americanism. And it seems to me sometimes that nudism, firstly, it's a bit old-fashioned, possibly. I do find that they both have different connotations, I guess. Naturism does sound more natural, sounds a bit more all-encompassing, the sort of the just being with nature and all that sort of stuff. Nudism, I guess, sounds more like a focus on the body itself. I do find that, I would never say nudist. I think if I said I'm a nudist, there's something in that sounds a bit more, not even sexualized, that's too harsh, but it doesn't sound as kind of all-encompassing as naturism. Nudist sounds possibly even more activist. I don't know. There's all sorts of words around it that probably, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say I'm a nudist. But then again, I think there's a language thing, because I think the Americans do say nudism a lot more, and that's the term they use. So yeah. Interesting one.
I mean, people just like to bung a label on stuff, don't they, really? And so I guess it's a way of describing yourself. And
yeah, I mean, the labels thing is interesting.
Do you remember the first article I sent you? And I said, do not call me a naturist at the bottom.
Yeah, I do.
Well, I've had to adopt the label, because what else am I? I enjoy social nudity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I am a naturist. But that just sounds less weird. I keep going back to the weird thing. I thought it was all very weird.
Yeah.
Naturism sounds less weird to an outsider, I think.
It does, yeah, I think so, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Naturism it sounds more inclusive. And as well, I don't know why, but nudist sounds a bit more male. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it does sound like something a man would describe me as opposed to a woman.
So as a woman in naturism, as we are, what challenges do we face? I mean, where do you start?
Well, I guess we've faced so many challenges in life in general, in terms of, there's not a woman alive that hasn't had a, lewd comment or worse, the whole Me Too thing. So again, that's probably why I've been reluctant to kind of stick my backside all over Twitter, because I just know that I'll just get avalanches of lewd comment and I just don't need it. I think you get it enough anyway. Yeah, I think that is the main problem, really. There's so many kind of dodgy single guys out there. I mean, they're absolutely all over the place. I mean, the H&E, say what you like about the classifieds and the personal ads. If you were running a business and that brought in money, I do try and keep them as clean and, but we all know what they're after. And actually, as an aside, I don't really want to be too judgmental, really, because people have lifestyles and people do what they want with those lifestyles, as long as it's consensual and fine. I don't like to judge people, because people judge naturists just the same. And actually, we did a feature on Jocelyn a while ago, well, probably about a year at least, and she's a naturist, but she's also a bondage model. And, people would say, oh my God, fit of the vapors, how on earth, how dare she even discuss? Well, actually, she made the point that those two things are actually not as far away as they really could be. That's just what she does.
It's a job at the end of the day.
It's her job. It's all consensual, legal. And she's pretty much says that people who judge that, sometimes naturists can be quite prudish and quite on the high horse, but no, naturists are judged just the same, really. So maybe we should be more understanding of people in the sex industry. I don't mind, as long, like I say, the main things that it has to be are legal and consensual. So there's that, but yeah, going back to, we've got the personal ads in H&E, and I'm always hearing that there's just single blokes that are absolute menaces out there. And it seems like the internet is awash with them. They're all over the internet. They're all over social media. And I guess it's the sort of incel culture, really. These people who get angry at women, and it's everywhere.
It's a shame because, I mean, within our naturist community, I think single guys do get a bad press.
Yeah.
But it's the behavior of those that aren't genuine and, are there for the wrong reasons that do down for the genuine guys. And that part isn't fair.
No, definitely not. And I don't know what you do about, because social media is an absolute minefield. So I guess I'm talking about the online world.
Yeah.
The actual real world is not bad. I've been to quite a few events, and maybe there's been a few single guys, and probably at the very worst is they're a bit awkward and they don't know how to deal with people. So you just, I guess I've had that, really. But in the naturist setting, I've never had any awkward experiences. It's just online and that kind of thing, really.
Online, like personally, all the lewd stuff seems to have settled down. The direct messages and things and the dick pics, that seems to have calmed down. So I'm quite grateful for that.
In all the sort of 12 years of doing this and longer, I've not really had that many. I sometimes think I would have had more kind of dick pics via email and whatever. I mean, obviously, all my messages are locked down anyway. My DMs are not open. But I'm surprised, really. I mean, and again, there was one guy who was personal advertiser, and he sent me a few pictures, and one of them was that, and I just absolutely blasted back at him. I said, "How dare you think that you can send that? What are you thinking?" And in the end, I blocked him.
It's a bit of a violation.
Yeah, it was awful, really, and I don't think I'm not sure whether he understood quite what he'd done wrong. And the advert that he puts out is the most cringe-worthy advert. It's online now. I mean, he keeps putting it out there because clearly he's not found a woman that that he's looking for, really. And
clearly he's not going to either.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
A message we must say to men, like, unless we directly ask you for that kind of image, it is not okay to send.
Okay, I don't know why we would even think of doing that. Yes, I mean, as I say, probably because I'm not out there in terms of, I've always been a sort of a backroom person, really. That's my job. I'm an editor. I've been a sub-editor for 25 years, and the editor's usually not front and center. I mean, I've always been quite clear that it's not all about me. The magazine, I'm not on every other page of it because it isn't all about me. It's about the people in the magazine. It's about people's stories. I just put the thing together, and that's what I've always done. And now Paul does that. And again, it's not Paul it's not all about Paul. He's not on every single page, so it's a job that you do, and you put the magazine together, and the same with it with the local paper. That's slightly different, actually. With the local paper, I am a bit more out and about, but with my clothes on. Never the twain shall meet, really. That'll be fun. That'll be interesting.
That's worth exploring. There's an article right there.
Yeah, it is.
So in the wider society, the biggest battle we've got is that naturism is considered weird. And I know firsthand that that's how I felt. So apart from bringing it out to the masses a bit more, that yes, we run the risk of getting the mickey taken out of us, or what else can we do to educate but normalize nudity for what it is? It's just clothes free.
No, and I sometimes think there's some people where you will never win that battle, so you might as well not even get into the argument with them. And I kind of remember the furore about when those people basically picketed British naturism swims because of the kids being involved. Those people are unhinged. They're convinced that children being near naked people is paedophilia or whatever. They cannot get their heads around it at all. And I do wonder whether you're just shouting into the wind with people like that. I mean, I grew up in a non-naturist family, and I wouldn't say I have hang-ups, but definitely I do think that if there'd have been more sort of natural, if my mum and dad had gone around naked, that I would have had a different attitude to the body. I know I would have done. It wasn't sort of Victorian prudism, but there was a definitely like, if you kind of happen on your dad in the bath or whatever, it was like, sort of shock and horror. And I think that does teach you that is something that's not to be seen. It's huge. And I don't know whether it's so ingrained in our society. That's my worry. And then you've got, again, the noise of people who are just saying, these swims are disgusting. These are all paedophiles and all these old men and all that.
It's not worth the aggro, I think.
It isn't worth the aggro. And it's a bit like saying about, printing pictures of kids. It's just, you don't want to go there. You literally is more than your life's work to be sort of incur the wrath of these kind of pedo hunters, if you like, the people who think that the sort of the modern day morality, and all that stuff. It really is quite worrying. So
it's about education as well, then, I guess, because naturism, if you understand naturism, it's just about doing everything you would ordinarily do, just without clothes. It's that simple.
It is that simple, yeah. I guess there's ways and means of doing it. I mean, I think British Naturism has done it, and appearing on this settee of Good Morning Britain naked and stuff like that. For me, that just cements the fact that it's weird. When people look at it again, it's just we'll look at the person in the because the rest of them are not naked. If the whole of the crew and the presenters got the kit off, then I'd do it, because then we're all normalising it. I guess that's the thing. I suppose I wouldn't have done it. But it's difficult and it's personal to people, I guess, because there's a point to be made, and if you're making it, it's a very visible point. But then people might watch thinking, hang on, well, that's a bit weird. And then we're back to square one. Because I think the whole sort of thing about the first impressions of naturism, I think we've got less to worry about the sex side of things than the weird side of things. But people are always going to be judgmental. And I don't know whether we stop trying to preach to people who are not listening and try and push on doors that are maybe slightly more open. Because that's where I'm getting there, I guess. Are we ever going to win that battle? I'm not sure. But there might be ways and means.
We've done some really good media things. So, like, with not me necessarily, but there has been some really good discussions about naturism. I don't know if you saw the Catherine Ryan parental guidance.
No, I don't think so. No.
So that was myself and Simon and our middle daughter, and it was about family naturism. And they talked to Lizzie, our daughter, and asked her thoughts. Don't you think people will think it's weird? And what she always says is, you don't question what's normal to you. So it's normal for her to be around Simon nude or me now nude. In fact, she was nude around me before I was nude around her. And I thought that was weird, so it's all flipped on its head. But yeah, she doesn't question it, because to her, it's just a body. She's got a very healthy view standing on it. And it's not weird, because that's what she knows. Whereas my younger one, she's a little bit down on herself because she doesn't have the body freedom and the confidence that the other two have got.
Yeah.
So it is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is.
So I suppose this is just an extension of what we've been saying. How do we encourage more body positivity and acceptance?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, social media again is a total minefield, but I guess that's where this battle is being fought, isn't it, really, on social media, because there's so many kind of, unrealistic things being posted, all the sort of pouting and Instagram and, trying to, show pictures of yourself that are not real. I mean, we all try and probably post a selfie that's, getting the best side and all that. We all do it, We all try and post pictures where we look all right.
Suck the chins in and stuff.
Exactly. We've all done that. Are the kids still using the software where it actually augments them to the point where they can't be seen in public because, they don't look like their picture? I mean,
that's so scary.
It's so scary. I mean, the irresponsibility is off the scale of these companies that have released that software and putting it out, Oh, God, I don't know. I suppose you just have to, like, body acceptance movements. They are quite big online. I guess it's just kind of falling in with that, really.
Have you watched Love Island, this series?
No, I can't say it's like my thing.
Oh, my days. It was on last night and, they're all in sort of bikinis. They're not even bikinis. They are bits of fabric. And to me, it's designed to accentuate your boobs, your butt, your lady bits.
Yeah. And again, maybe those kind of programs have a responsibility to have more sort of diverse bodies, because it's not representative of real life, is it? These people, how many people do you ever see that are that beautiful and thin? Like, never. Because I think body acceptance and positivity and all that stuff is a really thorny thing. Because personally, I worry that certain sections of it, so normalizing being morbidly obese is something I worry about a bit, because I think people should try and be healthy as much as possible.
Oh, yes, that's the flip side.
Yeah, that's the flip side of it, really. And I guess you could say anorexia is the other side of that coin. So body positivity can go too far. And it's like everything in social media, everything goes too far. There's no sense of perspective or moderation or nuance or anything like that. Everything's kind of a million miles an hour and extreme noise and all that. And that's what kids live this online life now.
Mm-hmm.
God, how do you sort all that out? I don't know. I think it's just a parental thing, isn't it? And trying to sort of make sure we know what they're doing and that kind of thing. Yeah, but it's massive. We try and sort of use social media to do that, but it's huge. You have to get a big movement going, get younger people to sort of get on board.
The younger people, I think social media, the likes of Instagram and the filters that we just mentioned, have readjusted what our young people will see as normal. And, anything beyond this micro waist and big butt, that's unreal, it's unachievable, it's unrealistic, and it's damaging to our young people because they're never going to achieve this idealism.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I guess it's what crowd you fall into, what tribe you end up being in. And that's something you can fall into quite a young age online, so what's your tribe? So we need to try and get them into the naturist tribe and actually use that as we're living in this age now of almost like a new prudism, I guess. And maybe it comes from the attitudes of men, so women are less likely and young girls probably less likely to want to go naked in this sort of climate where men seem to be more predatory than ever. It's really hard, isn't it? I mean, God, be on forever.
Yeah, gosh. The whole body positive thing, I think, is something, it's a fundamental part of being a person. We've all got one. And you're right, it's important to try and keep them healthy.
Yeah.
But then some people are designed to be bigger, and that's their okay, that's their normal.
If that's what you are and you're happy with that, and it's like, if you're not happy with it, you can try and change that. But as long as you're changing it for you, you're changing it for your own health, your own positivity and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, as long as that is a positive thing for you, if you're going to be miserable while doing it, there's definitely an argument that actually eating a chocolate bar now and again, the calories that puts on is offset against how good it made you feel, so there's a balance to be had, there's definitely a balance and everything that you've got to do. I mean, I've lost a little bit of weight in the last kind of couple of years and kept it off and pretty chuffed about that. And
as I was as well.
Yeah, exactly. Other people are different, and it's all about you got to do you got to do it for yourself, not for anybody. You got to do it for yourself, for your own health and happiness, and that.
As long as you're healthy,
as long as you and in your mind and everything. I mean, some of the judgmental stuff is so weird, and women are actually really bad at that. Women's magazines and all that are unbelievably awful, and there must be a demand for them because they're selling them. Women, stop buying this awful crap. Stop judging other women. I don't get it. I saw something about that last out of Derry Girls, and people are calling her fat online, and she's really pretty, and I just think most of the people doing that are women. Because generally speaking, this is not a scientific thing, but most fellas that I've ever known don't really like stick thin women. It's women that are dragging down other women a lot of the time. And I think, really, really stop doing that. So when you see a celebrity on telly that is slightly overweight, why should it be shocking? Because most of us are.
Yeah. We don't have to keep pushing these beauty standards. Yeah, we want our skin to look nice. Yeah, we want our hair to look nice. Yeah, we want to smell nice. But do I really have to have a bum lift or a bum filler or a boob job
No, definitely
even
not.
if I had the budget, I just still wouldn't.
No, absolutely.
Any final thoughts, Sam, on moving forward with naturism, what we can do, what guys can do? We've talked about what women can do, help each other, be nice.
What can men do in terms of naturism? I don't know, just be understanding and supportive, really. I guess, just understand boundaries. I don't know, just sort of think about, I mean, the dick pics, I just don't understand that. Have a think about what you're doing before you do anything like that. Nobody wants to see that, really. I mean, yeah, it's an offence for a start and it's illegal, but don't be dicks, for God's sake. Just have a think about what you're doing, really.
Don't be a dick, I don't want to see your pic.
Don't be a dick, yeah. And I guess I'm not a great fan of segregation. I like mixed groups. I mean, obviously there's reasons for having sort of women only things, especially for people who are trying the lifestyle for the first time. Definitely, you certainly feel safe in numbers and with like-minded people. But in the end, sort of segregation isn't great for me. I think mixed groups are nice, but we need more women to do that.
Once I experienced my first naturist venue, after that I don't really see gender anymore. It's really odd.
No. We sometimes don't even see age or anything. It's really cool.
No.
Yeah, it really does fall off quite quickly. You just sort of amongst people and you just chat and you get to know people and all that stuff. And it's just normal. Yeah.
People you ordinarily probably wouldn't have spoken to in a textile environment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just bring people together and it is really interesting because that's the thing. Yeah, you have to talk to people a bit more, don't you? You really have to talk, sort of find out, you don't necessarily judge too much on clothing or whatever. I've always found that you have to sort of talk to people a lot more and find out where they're from and what they do. And, we always get to it very quickly because humans like to know, what do you do and where are you from and all that kind of stuff. Just, I don't know, just be appropriate behaviour. And if you don't know what that is, then I don't know, you need to take a long look at yourself, really. It should be obvious what's appropriate and what isn't.
It's the same as if you're dressed.
It is the same as if you're dressed. Yeah, personal space, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I've been in business meetings and stuff where people have they keep encroaching on you and you're like, just put arm's length, don't you know the personal space thing? There's some people that really do not know how to do that. And so, yes, it's a lot of it's stuff that should be obvious.
Cool. Right. Yeah, no, that's been great. Sam Hawcroft, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Helen. I appreciate that. Bye.
Thanks to Sam. It's always great to have different women on here. We've all got different views and opinions and experiences of naturism. On the whole, they're all positive, and I think with Sam, the digital world is mainly her world, and it is tiresome to receive all the unwanted pictures that we do get. It really is not okay just to send one of those types of pics unless you've been specifically asked for it. Otherwise, just don't do it. H&E magazine is available in paper copy in some leading stores in the UK, for example, WH Smith's. Otherwise, it is online, and we're going to put details of how you can get copies on the show notes. It's amazing to actually think that this magazine has been going for so long and has endured all the different flows and trends of naturism within its over 100 years. We always like to hear from our listeners at Women in Focus, so please do get in touch. The email address is womeninfocus@bn.org.uk, or the web address is bn.org.uk/Women in Focus. Please try to remember to like, subscribe, thumbs up on all the various platforms where you get your podcasts. It really does help with our engagement. I've been Helen Berryman, and I'm looking forward to next month as we bring more Women in Focus.